today we're going to be talking about the differences between plate and spring reverbs. In this video, we're going to be using Arturia's reverb collection. We're going to be using the REV Spring-636 and the REV Plate-140. These are both part of the effects collection bundle, and they are near perfect emulations of the original units that they're named after. Okay, so here I am inside of Ableton Live, and I've got two identical audio channels. The only difference is the top one uses the Arturia REV Spring-636, which is a spring reverb, and the bottom uses the REV Plate-140, which is a plate reverb. Let's go ahead and listen to these audio examples. I'm going to leave all of the settings the same and just allow you to kind of absorb the difference in character between the two reverbs.
When leaves fall down, winter is coming. When leaves fall down, winter is coming.
Now live the life you love and mind the life that you live. Now live the life you love and mind the life that you live.
So I think we can agree that there is definitely a huge difference in characteristics there. Not only that, but I think on a few of these audio clips, the spring reverb is the clear winner or the one that sounds the best. And on some others, the plate reverb sounds better, and on some of them, it could go either way depending on the style of music you're going for or the desired result. So the reason why they sound different and have these different characteristics is that these two plugins are modeled after pieces of hardware. And plate and spring reverbs are very, very different on how they create reverberation. Reverberation is just a continuation of sound after a sound stops. A plate reverb uses an electrical mechanical transducer similar to a loudspeaker to create vibrations in a large plate of sheet metal. The plate's motion is then picked up by one or more contact microphones whose output is an audio signal which can be added to the original dry signal. Spring reverbs use a spring system. It's got a transducer at one end of the spring and a pickup at the other. And similar to plate reverbs, it uses this to create and capture vibrations within the metal spring. Arturia used their exclusive true analog emulation and physical modeling technologies to recreate a true-to-life virtual emulation of actual physical analog units. So Arturia used that groundbreaking modeling technology to create a software reverb version of the legendary Grampian 636 spring reverb. The original 636 was the go-to for The Who's Pete Townshend and the legendary dub producer Lee Scratch Perry, and is quite literally the cornerstone of reggae and ska music. And on the plate side, they actually used the EMT 140, which was a breakthrough technology at the time and the world's first plate reverb. The REV Plate-140 is a circuit-accurate recreation of the iconic EMT 140 reverb and its vacuum tube preamp. So now that we have a general understanding of the differences between spring and plate reverbs and how they create reverberation, and we know a bit about the meticulous detail Arturia went into recreating or emulating those analog devices and making these virtual versions, let's check out the VSTs in a bit more detail before we wrap up the video. I'm looking at the Spring 636 here, and this is pretty much what the original 636 looked like. First of all, we can choose a mic or aux 1 mega ohm input, and this really changes the character of the sound coming into the reverb before reverb is created. So right now, this is what it sounds like with the mic input. And now let's switch it to the aux input. We crank up the input so you can really hear the difference. And obviously, as you increase the input amount, you're going to start to overload it and introduce saturation and distortion and really color the sound. And sometimes that's what you're looking for, but if not, go ahead and roll back on the input and then just boost your output towards the end. The overload indicator is just saying what I just talked about. If you're starting to get saturation to distortion, it's going to light up and let you know. Decay time, very straightforward, how long you want the decay to last. Width, you can go mono or stereo. Another cool thing too about the Spring 636 is that if you tap right here with your mouse, you can get the sound of hitting the reverb tank on the Spring unit, which is pretty cool. Over here where it says preamp and reverb is just the blend between the dry and the wet signal, and then the output is right here. There's also an advanced menu over here, which is a feature in most Arturia plugins. If you click down, here we have some of the more modern features. Now, one of the biggest benefits of having the VST version of this Spring Reverb is that it comes with 8 different tank variations. And the tank has a big influence on the sound of the Spring Reverb itself. The springs sit inside of the tank, and its shape and its size and what it's made of, everything influences the characteristics or the tones of the reverb itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and bypass the pre-filter. I'm going to bypass the post equalizer. And I'm just going to flip through these different tanks on that same guitar example so you can really hear how the character is different for each one of them. Beyond that, we have a pre-delay, which is really cool, especially if you're doing something like reggae. And as I said, a pre-filter, very self-explanatory. Post-filter, I'm going to turn those on, crank up the pre-delay, go back to that original tank, and just play it on this drum roll right here. That's with the pre-delay way up, and that's with it down quite far. And the pre-delay in Arturia plugins goes up to 250 milliseconds, which is a crazy big value. And that's what's allowing you to get like a real big, almost like an echo here, instead of just a pre-delay. And big, long pre-delays like that are heavily used, especially in reggae. All right, now we can check out the REV Plate-140. The set of controls here are very straightforward and simple to use. You've got a preamp with a drive control. As you begin to push this to the higher levels, you'll actually begin to introduce saturation and distortion. It's a really pleasant saturation and distortion, and you can tweak it to taste here. So let's go ahead and check this out. I'm gonna go ahead and put the blend all the way to wet. This is the dry-wet mix. And I'm gonna crank the drive up to 100%, or as far as it can go. It's 6 dB. So it's a much cleaner signal or reverb when the drive is all the way down, and obviously you can mix between that and the saturated signal. You'll also notice that it lights up here when there's actually saturation and distortion being added to the signal, which is very, very cool. Over here we have 3 different models of plate reverbs. Let's go ahead and check out the 3 different ones. I'm going to pull the drive down for now. Right here is the decay time control. You can go from 1 minute to 6 minutes, and you just click up and down. And as you can see here, you can actually go in between the 6 and the 5, and the 4 and the 5, and so on. So it's not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can go in between some of the numbers there. Let's go ahead and crank it up pretty high and check out the 3 different models. So as you can see there, there's a huge difference in character between the 3. And as I'm hovering over the knob here, you can see that this one is labeled modern, this one is labeled classic EMT, and this one is labeled punchy. So let's go ahead and pull down the dry wet mix again. We have a width control. We can make the reverb signal mono if we wanted.
When leaves fall down, winter is coming.
And as with the Spring Reverb, you have some advanced controls down here. Very straightforward stuff. Again, we have a very long pre-delay option over here, up to 250 milliseconds. We have a high pass filter. And then we have a modulation control. And what's really cool about the modulation inside of the REV Plate-140 is that it's very noticeable when you have it on. I'm going to go ahead and put it on 100% wet again. And let's deactivate it and then turn it on. The amount is up to as high as it can go, and you can really hear the fluctuations happening. And then finally, we have a very standard post equalizer that we can bypass or activate right here at the final stage. A very simple to use reverb that sounds absolutely fantastic. I think you'll find if you're looking for something that sounds closer to natural ambience or natural reverberation, the Plate is going to be what you're looking for. And the Spring is going to be more a artistic style reverb that still sounds absolutely amazing. Both of these reverbs are available on pluginboutique.com. Click the link in the video description to check this out, to check out the full effects bundle and everything else Arturia has to offer. I'm Joshua Casper. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next video.